Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I'm your host, Loredude. How are things? I need to get a new background. This globe thing keeps skipping and it's driving me nuts. And near as I can tell, there's nothing I can do about it. It just occasionally skips. And I hate it. And I don't know what to do to fix that. Like, I suppose I could technically make like an hour version of it by just copying and pasting it over and over in the editor, but... So I need a new background image. Which is why I'm filled with fear. Thank you very, very much, True. And as ever, those Twitch Prime subs are much appreciated, and welcome to the... Welcome to the Baker's Dozen Club. I'm not going to do that to my throat. I already have a sore throat this morning. Thank you very, very much, Mega. Thank you very, very much, Pico. Though I never actually ask for those Tier 1 subs, I do still very much appreciate them, especially right now. Thank you. What I was going to say was that we're just going to get rid of it. Boop. There, we've got a new background now. It's actually a different one than this one, don't worry. And we're going to switch this around. I mean, who likes the Nile anyways, right? Nobody likes the Nile. What in the world? God, this program is so crap sometimes. Sorry, the chat program I have is pulling almost a meg of memory for some reason. It's just a chat program. Anyways, let's go with one of my old favorites. Where is it? I used it recently up there. Boop. There we go. Hi, guys. So in the pre-ramble, quick couple of things. One of them is fear, or should I say fear, from Sacred King. Thank you very much, Sacred King, as ever. Much appreciated. Thank you. Yes, I have seen the new Spider-Man PS4 trailer. Not anything new there. Nothing really new to talk about. What is this doing? Is it because I've been rendering today? Is that the problem? Let's get rid of this. Maybe that'll help. Anyways. Because I've been rendering today. Where was I? Pathfinder Kingmaker has a release date now, September 25th. So that's awesome, for those of you who care about that. Probably not going to do a premiere run of that. We are mega backed up on streams, and aren't even going to be starting probably until late August at the rate we're going right now. We'll see. I'm doing as much work as I can. I'm going with as little sleep as I can to try and get things caught up. What else? There's this game coming out called The Cycle I wanted to mention briefly, which is a PvP PvE game. The idea is that you have a timer and you go down and you gather stuff and you get equipment and you go do dungeons and blah blah blah. It's your typical Borderlands cycle, except the thing is you can group with or kill anyone you want to. That's the gimmick, is that it's a PvP PvE thing. I'm not sure what I think about that. I've seen enough social exercise games that I just don't... I don't have anything else to say about them. By the way, I want to give special thanks to MiniZ for helping me to paint this black so it can show up here on the white shirt. Hope it looks good. If it doesn't, whatever. Of course, no, I haven't been playing Octopath Traveler. I've been watching my niece. So apparently some people haven't gotten the message. I am watching my niece. I was last week. I will be this week, all week, and then up to the beginnings of next week. That's why there's no stream scheduled. That's why I'm not doing anything, because I'm busy. And in fact, as soon as I stop watching her, I will be going right back to crunching and cramming as much YouTube as I can in order to get that done. So, that's why. So, for those of you unaware, The only things I've been doing is occasionally playing Ghost Recon Wildlands with PAX in the evening, and occasionally slogging my way through FF14 in the evening as part of my... I suppose that's not true. I've also been going through Dragon Age Origins some more because I have work to do. Hey, Tricksters. Welcome back. Also, I hate Octopath Traveler. It's the worst game ever made. Now, that's just for you, Crit Source. What else? Oh, yeah. I do want to say something, and it's funny. It's funny. This isn't a topic, and I'm not going to make this a topic. But it's silly to me how much fear has to judge what I can talk about on my show. It's amusing to me. None done? Damn it, Valvedrix. Hello, Mr. Botlin. Let's see. Our next topic's going to be... no. There. Because... my news feed is clogged with one news item. I'm not going to say what the news item is. I'm not going to even acknowledge anything about that. No naming, no nothing. Because I thought very seriously and very carefully if I wanted to go ahead and talk about it as a topic. I finally decided not to, and do you know why? Because of fear. Because if I even bring it up at all, I am painting a giant target on my face and opening myself up to literally damaging to my life circumstance that might actually happen. That's a real problem right now that is already happening to multiple people. Actual politicians have already gotten involved in this. Never mind the fake politicians who started it. So, if anybody's wondering, not even going to comment on it. And I bet people watching this, like, in a week or so are going to be like, what the hell is he talking about? I'm not naming it. No names. No. Not happening. What else is in my pre-ramble here? Oh, I was talking about the cycle. I already don't have anything else to say about that. Nobody watches my videos on games. They're all terrible. They're all crap. It's just me rambling too much. I have hopped into BFA. Remind me next time. I have hopped into BFA to try out the new class changes. I actually like most of the changes overall. I like what they did with Holy Priest. I like what they did with Protection Warrior. I like what they did with Restoration Shaman. And that's about all I've tried out. Yeah, do me a favor and no one actually say anything here. Have I ever done any videos on Elder Scrolls games? Could someone link him my Elder Scrolls lore run, please? I saw the Uncharted fan movie. That was amusing. Oh, I didn't cover Daggerfall. I'm not covering Daggerfall. I don't have time to cover Daggerfall. I briefly talk about it from Daggerfall. That's all I got. I had something else as a pre-ramble, but I don't have it written down. Oh, yeah. Right. So... one of the things, this is just a pre-ramble thing, but one of the things that amuses me this week is Comic-Con's going on. San Diego Comic-Con, the main Comic-Con. And I'm like, okay, cool. There will be a lot of geek-related news there, right? Right? And yet every single time I went to try and get some semblance of news and be like, hey, what's going on? All I got was, here's the latest cosplayers. These are the best cosplayers at Comic-Con. Some of the cosplaying cosplayers. Cosplay. I'm serious. Specifically looking for news. All I found was cosplay. Well, Clone Wars is separate. That's actually a topic, so we're going to bring that up later. But that's it, right? Like, they had a few trailers, which is like, okay, trailers, that's nice. We already knew they were making a Godzilla movie. We already knew they were, doing Venom. None of that's news. None of that's interesting. It's just, hey, guys, there's another trailer out. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, we already knew they were working on Shazam. Although that was all right. It was all right. Oh yeah, what? I guess that's not true. Sorry, I actually forgot one. I forgot one. We also had the what's it called? It's like the Teen Titans TV show, which is gritty and edgy and actually incredibly stupid looking. I'm sorry to anybody who really liked the look of it. I was laughing for about half the trailer. Oh my god. It was like one of the most stereotypical trailers I've ever seen in my life. Like, if I made a bullet point list of all of the things that just go into a trailer, I could just, yep, they did that, they did that, they did that, they did that. Yeah, it's supposed to be Grayson, too, right? The Amazing Graysons was that thing at the beginning. But no, he's Jason Todd. Super dark, super gritty, super edgy. It was so 90s. It was so 90s. Oh my god. In a world. I don't actually remember if they did In a World, if I'm being honest. I heard about that, Harriant. I'm not sure that qualifies as news. It's interesting, though. Oh yeah, there's another thing. There's another one. So this is fantastic. Now, as you can see, I already ripped it in half. And then I realized after ripping it in half that I should read this on camera. In case you can't tell, this says, "Thank you. This is from Comcast, who has been giving me so many issues lately. I think I have resolved some of my connection issues with them. We'll see. I'll be watching. So far, I haven't dropped any frames, so we're already doing better. From the account team. Thank you, valued customer. We'd like to thank you for your loyalty to Comcast Business. On June 26th, your internet download was increased from 250 to 300. By the way, I actually get about 60 down. That's an increase of 20% for no additional charge. Simply follow these instructions and blah, blah, blah." So, fast internet is essential to your business. And we're I like the presumption there. "And we're committed to enhancing and developing our products to help you operate at peak efficiency and productivity." I remind you, I've been having dropped connections like for the last month because of them. "If you'd like assistance or like to learn more, please don't hesitate to card. I've included a business card, which is right here, which I've ripped in half. Thank you for your loyalty." And so on the back, it's like, in order to do this, all you have to do is sign up for this additional service. And you'll get this increase at no charge. So what happens? I'll just skip ahead a little bit. What it is if you sign up for additional service, you will get the increase. Basically, you'll be bumped up a notch now for free. In other words, for the same cost as right now. And then when that deal expires in 3 months, you get bumped up to the proper price for the new tier. I use business cards. Don't get to give them out a lot right now, but I do have them. They're right over there. Oh yeah, Discovery Season 2 had a trailer, which is also really dumb. Sorry. I've already given my opinion on Discovery. You know, it was just kind of a net neutral. But looking at it, I was just like, okay. There's these red things. We have no idea what they are. And they're tied to Spock, and it's a big crisis, and Christopher Pike is back. Or here. Sure. Whatever. Oh god, it's gonna be the Iconians. It's gonna be the Iconians. Or the Takan. How many people know what the Takan are? Anyways. Let's go ahead and switch this up here. Oh, I'm actually looking forward to Fantastic Beasts, too. Legit. I'm one of those really weird people who actually legitimately liked Fantastic Beasts 1. I feel like they have screwed themselves on the marketing side of things, because this is basically the Grindelwald series of of the movies, and yet they've titled the basic thing Fantastic Beasts, right? Issues. Anyways, let me get a timestamp here. That's true, Red2. That is true. Let's talk about the EU and Google. So for those of you who haven't heard, Google last week was fined 4.34 billion euros for things I'll get into in a second. And here, let's switch music. All of my ruminations are fine to listen to, Dago. There's a reason I released the MP3s with them. As far as Loren's, I don't know. The Ride to Hell Retribution one. I always recommend the Ride to Hell Retribution Loren. Especially since so few people saw it. More people need to go watch that. I'm being 100% serious, by the way. I put a lot of work and effort into that, damn it. So hang on, let's go up to the Doom playlist. I keep playing the Doom playlist! Yeah, stuff! So, let me give my opinion first. Oh, there's no vote. I'm sorry, I didn't even notice that the vote graphic was there. There we go. Let me give my opinion first, then we'll talk about it. I think this is a money grab by someone in the EU. I think they're just trying to get easy money out of Google, because this is not the hardest thing for Google to pay. That is a lot of money, but it's also only about 1/6 of their quarterly return. And yes, I looked it up. So, not a really big deal. Now, that is my opinion. The biggest problem I have here is I haven't been able to figure out who's getting the money. Like, where the money is specifically going. Now, for those of you who are not as incredibly cynical as I am, government agencies going out of their way to fine people as a method of producing money, as a method of income, is pretty normal. At least here in the States. I'm not 100% sure how it is in Europe right now. I could tell you how it was in Britain like a century or two ago. But I couldn't tell you about how it is right now. But like I said, that is a very, very common thing here in the States right now. It is a everyday practice to use fines as a method of income. Now, the biggest problem, again, is I can't figure out where the money's going. And I have looked, for reference. I have actually spent time trying to deliberately say, okay, where exactly is this money going? And I haven't found any information about that for this year or last year's. For those of you not aware, last year, Google got hit by a $2.7 billion euro, or dollar euro, listen to me, 2.7 billion euro fine for some other crap that was going on. Now, I know that numbers are big, and some people don't really have a mind for numbers, so let's go ahead and discuss this briefly. Dollar euro. Doluros, it's going to be the new thing when the idiocracy takes over. No, how much is that? Well, like I said, it's about 1/6 of their quarterly income. Here's a slightly better way to put this into perspective. Right now, I make X amount of money per year. I'm not going to tell you the amount. And if I was to work every year and my income was not to change, I would have to work roughly 160,000 years in order to make enough money in order to pay this fine. Now, 160,000 is also a big number. So, all of known history is just it's a footnote in how much I would have to work in order to pay this fine if I worked every year at my current income rate for the next 160 millennia. There's actually a related topic there about how there's 2 different layers to financial business and how that's stupid in my opinion, but let's not get into that. That's really a separate topic. One of the biggest things as to why this is being... Couldn't the Imperium give me a loan? No, we don't do loans. It's usury! No, I'm kidding. One of the biggest reasons why... No, exactly, Hazardous, you get the point. One of the biggest reasons why they are suing them is because Google has this thing where they basically mandate that the Android store be installed with Android. It has to come pre-installed, or else you can't install it separate. And if it comes pre-installed, it comes with some other things like the Google search, including Chrome. Chrome is specifically being targeted because Chrome allows Google to use it for ad revenue, which accounts for an enormous amount of Google's income. In addition to that, all of that's fact. The alleged part is that Google is leaning on other companies in order to force them basically to use Chrome and whatever in order to increase the ad revenue. As weird as this may sound, so far I don't really see much of an issue with that. So I decided to look into this a little bit more closely to figure out what the hell is the specific core point. And I found it. This is funny to me. The core point here is the fact that Android is something that can happen on phones that are not Androids. Android phones, Google phones. If you don't understand what I'm trying to say here, you can put Android on other devices. This does not apply to Apple, because Apple, you can't put iOS on other devices. I mean, they don't let you. Obviously, you can, but they don't openly sell iOS to be put on other devices, on other phones or whatnot. Android does. Therefore, this applies to Android, and not Apple. I'm serious, by the way. Now, Google is trying to fight back against this, and I don't really think they're going to succeed. I am actually curious what they're going to do about this, though. They have been given 90 days in order to deal with this, to not only pay the fine, but to agree to all of their stipulations. Now, 90 days is probably not enough to actually get that across in order to actually implement this, assuming Google was interested in doing so. Why aren't they going after Apple as well? Because you can't put iOS on other devices. I'm serious, that's the reason. Look it up. If you don't believe me. I did. Anyways, so if they don't, good question. I wasn't able to find a or else in any of this. I'm assuming it'll just be another fine. They are talking about trying to ban Google from operating within the EU. I'm not sure how that's going to go over. What I find most interesting about all of this is I obviously don't really give much of a crap about Google. No, really. Google is not exactly a good company and hasn't been for several years. But the problem is Google does have an overwhelming market share of several different markets. It's one of those unavoidable problems. I actually have a segue topic here, because this topic itself, all I can do is speculate. There's just so much weird about this. Is that the laugh emote? You know, Jonah Jameson. Now, again, let's make this clear. I'm sorry, let me make sure my phrases are 100% clear. I have only heard politicians talking about banning Google from EU. Nothing official, nothing in stone, nothing in writing. So let's make that 100% clear. That's just something that people are saying. I mean, even Google has been saying stuff in return, which is probably a goddamn lie. One of the biggest things is that Google flat out said, I forget the name of the gentleman, but one of the chairmen was like, hey, guess what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to have to start charging more for our services if we implement this. Which is probably a lie, by the way, if you actually dig into why that's not a thing. I mean, they certainly could. But at this point, they'd be doing it out of spite, not to get a return on investment. Because Google just benefits too much from having those products be free. It's actually part of their market model that a lot of Google products are free. So... Anyways, this is all just a big pissing match, near as I can tell, between a government and a company. Not exactly the first time that happened. There's only two reasons this is really news. One is the size and scope of this, because Google is one of the most ridiculous companies in the world, and the EU is... But the other reason is my real topic. And that topic is standardization. Oh, both would lose terribly if they lost, Tigzar. Absolutely. The EU is a huge market. Europe is a huge market. Anyways. Standardization. I'm going to use an analogy here, but I want everyone to be... I want you guys to do me a favor, okay? I want you to be honest, but respectful. Now, I trust you guys to do that, because you guys are cool. Hang on. So, we're going to dip into something that is arguably controversial here for a second. One of the most obvious things that is hated on in a economic sense is a monopoly, right? And for good reason. Because if you have a monopoly, there's no real reason to try or to make effort or whatever, right? Like, it's so easy and obvious to understand why a monopoly is a bad thing. I don't even have to make that point. But standardization is not a monopoly. Standardization can very easily and smoothly lead to a monopoly, but it's not necessarily a monopoly in and of itself. So what I want to ask is, what do you think the negatives are when it comes to standardization? Now, let me use an analogy here. I've been building this in my head. Let's talk about cars. Actually, I'd drive closer to this, but whatever. What? I know, 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, or what the hell it is. Yes, I hate Monopoly the game. Never play Monopoly the game. It's not as bad as Risk, though. If every car had the same type of engine, now, what are the benefits of that? Let's talk about that first, because the negatives are obvious. But let's talk about the benefits. Easier to repair, because everyone knows the same type of engine, because it's the same type of engine, so everyone knows how to fix that engine. Easier to get spare parts. Easier to maintain. Easier to replace entirely. Right? All of these things, cheaper to produce, that's also very true. Cheaper to produce, much easier to use. There are benefits. There are weirdly... This is actually a complex topic, that's why I'm hesitating so much. There are a lot of benefits to standardization. Now, the reason I was thinking about this, believe it or not, Formula 1 will be more fun. Good answer. The reason I was thinking about that topic is I was thinking about something that is heavily standardized in our modern world. And it's this right here. For those of you who can't quite see this because the window's too small, this is a USB. Universal Serial Port, right? This is extremely standardized to the point where there are different types of USBs, but in general, a 1.0 USB type dongle or whatever will go into just about any USB type thing and will fit and will work. This is standardization right here. Now, this also kind of helps to make my point, because nobody has a monopoly on producing this. Now, I mentioned that, hear me out. I mention that because it is my opinion that if a monopoly was not allowed to develop, artificially in a standardization situation, we would probably have a monopoly form naturally in a standardization situation, which is the problem. So, getting back to my point, this, let's say, USB stuff, all standardized. All these different companies make USB stuff. Let's go back to the car example, because that's actually a better example. Let's go back to the engine example. Every car company can still make that same thing. Now, there can be differences in, like, how they do their workload or their production cycle, or what kind of materials they use in making the standardized engine, and therefore some companies will probably make the cheaper standardized engines. Now, if in case that sounds unrealistic, that still applies to this in real life, because there are actually cheaper USBs that will break or have worse connectors or worse pins or whatever. So this is something that is a factual thing already. So let's say we have each of these engines is being produced in a different way or with different materials or at different prices or whatever. What could happen, because the market is, the economy, the very concept of an economy is a fluid, chaotic thing, so predicting it is basically impossible. But we could guess at different outcomes here. For example, what if, let's call them Bob right here, Bob quality engines are produced, they cost more. They cost more, they spend more on it, they polish it, but they're very reliable. They're very good, very reliable. They need even less maintenance and even less repair parts than the other same standardized engines. Ergo, these engines tend to sell more, which means this company makes more money, which means they slowly start buying out other companies or just getting a larger market share, and you can see how a monopoly can just kind of grow out of that, even if it's not being deliberately pushed to. It's also possible that there would be the Bob Type C engines, where people who are doing the super cheap versions would get a larger market share because people just want a cheap engine and they want cheaper cars, right? That's not a hard thing to understand. So that you can see how that market share could grow too. It is my experience that the one thing we can predict when it comes to an economy, assuming nothing significant alters the economic, let's call it lake, the environment. If nothing actually alters this economic environment significantly, what tends to happen over time is more or less a natural lean towards monopolies. Now, not a true monopoly, obviously, but more along the lines of you got 50 companies, which turn into 30 companies, which turn into 20, which turn into 10. This is very standard and very normal based on how our economic system works, and has for the last several centuries. This is nothing new. Which is why I say it's not a true monopoly, because there's still 10 different companies there. It's like Comcast doesn't technically have a monopoly because they only have like 40% or whatever of the IP share of the United States. That's not a monopoly. They just happen to be monopolized in certain areas. Get me? Now, and yeah, exactly. You got your Ford and you got your Lamborghini. It's a great parallel. And just on the off chance, if anybody doesn't believe me, because I found myself discussing this with a friend of mine 2 days ago. One of the things that came up for me is, hang on. If it's the same engine, why would anyone buy this one over this one, especially if this one's more expensive? The answer is marketing and lies. No, seriously. There are actually industries right now in real life where basically the entire marketing strategy is to lie to you about what you're getting out of the product to make it look like their product is better than, or a service is actually more common here, but their product or service is better than someone else's when it isn't. Like factually is not better. But they have this whole ad shtick and they have this whole thing they try to push. We're the better one. Right? It's the same, but it's better. I mean, this is a really common thing. I like to point to one of my least favorite industries, and that's the insurance industry as a great example of this. Oh yeah, sorry. Present information. Yeah. Yeah, phone carriers is another good example of that. That's very true. Phones do this all the time. My point being that whether standardization is a good or a bad thing, which is something I don't actually want to get into, because that's honestly, I think that's more of a philosophical question than anything else. But whether standardization is better or worse as an economic principle, even in a standardization situation, I think we could avoid a true monopoly problem, which is why having an actual monopoly problem is a problem, in my opinion, because a monopoly really is different than what I'm talking about. Like I said earlier, if you have your Fords and you have your Lamborghinis, you don't actually have a monopoly, do you? I'm not 100% sure we have a true monopoly in the modern era. I'd have to really think about that. I couldn't come up with anyone else thinking about this topic, so if anybody has any ideas, please feel free to share. Which brings me to Google. Google's marketing strategy when Google was getting started and expanding and becoming, back when Google was actually good, you remember that? Was brilliant. It was ingenious, actually. Their whole idea, to summarize extremely, so please forgive me for the massive summary, for those of you who know way more about this, was, here's a product. It's free, with a couple of provisos that make us money, usually ad revenue. So, okay. Then we put that money back into it to make it better, and we put that money back into it to make it better. Basically trying to constantly have this cycle of returning investment in order to make the product as good as possible, in order to make as many people use it as possible. You remember when we had like 30 different search engines? Alta Vista or Ask Jeeves? Anyone remember that? Google kind of pushed most of those away because of its approach to business. Now, whether or not that was actually a deliberate intent to make a monopoly or not, I don't know and can't say. I would guess no. That is purely a guess, at least when they started. At least when they started. I have no doubt whatsoever that as of right now, Google is actively trying to create a monopoly situation. I have zero doubt about that. And the only reason they haven't succeeded so far is because there are laws against that in basically everywhere. I remember Ask. Ask was a follow-through of Ask Jeeves, if I'm not remembering. Yeah, Alta Vista was my personal search engine back in the day, for anybody curious. But yeah, Google basically grew into a monopoly by just being the better service. It became widespread because it was doing that. And then, of course, they started adding other things, like Gmail became a thing. And, God, you know, I actually don't remember the whole list. There's a huge list. The number of Google services and products is actually gargantuan. And they kept, let me rewind a bit, they kept doing this. Yeah, it's exactly like Steam, to apply to us gamers a little bit more. This is exactly like what happened with Steam. You remember when Steam was a joke? As in, like, Steam itself was awful. It was so incredibly bad that the joke was just, hey, Steam, and then get a laugh out of it. And Valve did the exact same thing. All right, cycle it around. Cycle it around. Okay, we've made some money. Put it back into it. Okay, we've made some money. Put it back into it. And Steam just kind of became, it still is, the digital distribution go-to. There are other competitors now, but Steam is still... Well, Google isn't a monopoly either, Hazardous, which is kind of my point, actually. I think we need another word for this. For this thing that's happening. Because this is becoming a thing more and more, and I think it's being accelerated because of the nature of the age we live in, because of how quickly things can happen nowadays compared to how they used to. And oligopoly, I can see that. I can see that. Or a hegemony. I like a hegemony. It kind of is a hegemony in its own right. The sprawl. The problem, in my opinion, this is pure opinion, by the way. The problem, in my opinion, is that it's about excesses and extremes. An oligopoly is not necessarily a bad thing. Not really. A monopoly is almost universally a bad thing. And we know that there are several companies which are going out of their way to push for monopolies because people don't understand when to hit the brakes. That's just my blunt opinion. This applies on like so many levels of society and reality and everything. Just one more trip to the buffet. Hang on. Oh, I regret that. Because you pushed too far. This is such a big problem with companies. The idea that, okay, we're making money, but we need to make more money. But we need to make all the money. We need to be making more and more money. As I've said so many times, I am not anti-money. I am not anti-corporate. I am not anti-company. I am anti-greed. And that's the problem here, in my opinion. Which brings me back to Google. Finally. I told you I'd cycle it around here. This brings me back to Google. I do think Google's being greedy right now. Abso-freaking-lutely. And I do think that dealing with that is something that needs to be done. I don't think this is the right way to do this because, in my opinion, this is just pure opinion. This is just a pissing match between a company and a government. I already said that earlier. I don't think this is a legitimate attempt by a body of organization in order to try and pull Google back from going to the monopoly range. I think we need to actually do something to prevent Google from trying to push into the monopoly range. Not just say, give us money, here's a fine. We'll see. We'll see what happens to this. As I said, Google is... Yes, that's very true, Max Time. I've never understood that. I don't get that. Maybe it's just because I've been poor and actually destitute for so much of my life, but the very concept of being greedy when you have is something that doesn't make sense to me. Right? Like, why do that? You have! Be thankful! Enjoy it! Share it! Sorry. Oh, I know, Hazardous. Funnily enough, if you're paying attention, this is also going back to something that I have said, and forgive me for being preachy, but this goes back to something I've said many, 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 many times. That one of the core problems with human society on an universal level is the quarterly return. And the more I study and the more I learn about the world around me, the more that is true. You know, with that $5 billion, I could probably make sure that everyone in chat right now, and all of my friends, and all of my family, and all of their friends and family are set for life. I could do that. 5 billion. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get so preachy about this. I apologize, guys. It's just, this whole thing... I'm gonna cuss in just a second. It feels like we're staring at one rich asshole who is in a pissing match with another rich asshole. Who do you vote for there? Who do you root for? Who do you care about in this? Right? Why do I care which rich jackass is the person who's winning this fight? Moving on. I need it tomorrow, Zagoten! As soon as you can. I don't have any hard deadlines in the Loreweek Theater stuff, for obvious reasons. Because this is a fan project being done for fun, but... where's the current topic? Here we go, current topic. Yeah, let's talk about lawsuits! I actually know exactly how much money I would need. Very carefully, Anthony. How much money I would need in order to be set for life for me and my kin. It's 11 million. With $11 million, I'd be good, and so would everyone I care about. See, just like this, Anthony. What's the problem? If you look at it from the side, you can kind of see how much it's actually sitting out here, but anyways. Yes, this is about the Kickstarter backer. So for those of you not aware, there's a Kickstarter backer who decided to try and back, has been backing Star Citizen over several years, has made several donations, has pledged several amounts of money over a large period of time to the company, and then found out that some of the things he would pledge to, he literally was physically incapable of doing, so he requested a refund. He was told no, so he decided to go to Kickstarter themselves. They told him no, so he decided to take them to court, who told him no. For the reference, I've actually done a little bit of looking into this, and I actually agree with the guy in this case. I think that whatever Star Citizen's company's name, I can't remember the name right now, is in the wrong on this one. Now let me explain a little bit. So, obviously, this is actually kind of a weird and complex topic that we've only still have only begun to get into the beginnings of how messed up this is. As I've said many, many times, Kickstarter is investing. Investing does not mean this money goes out and then I get a return on it. Investment means it's a form of gambling. If we're just being 100% honest, not legally gambling, but, you know, I put this money out in the hopes of getting an investment out of it. You don't know what that investment's going to be. You don't know its quality. You don't know its quantity. You don't even know its ETA. But the hope is you'll get an investment out of it. Cool. And I do think that many companies and Kickstarter themselves should do a little bit more due diligence on making it very clear that that's what this is, that this is an investment, not something that is a guarantee. However, I'm also a very firm believer in the concept of exceptions, of looking at things in a case-by-case basis. In this case, this gentleman was not saying, the game's taking too long, I want my money back, which is, in my opinion, that's unacceptable. You signed up for this, right? And this isn't a case of, oh, well, you know, maybe I kind of want that money back now, you know? I need my money back. So give me my money back. No, not a good exception. In this case, the whole point was that as the Kickstarter was continuing, because Star Citizen's been in Kickstarter for how many years at this point? They invented Squadron 42 and mentioned that several of this money would be going towards the development of Squadron 42 and blah, blah, blah. That happened over time as he himself was donating money over time. Which leads to the overall problem that he had donated money that was now going to be producing a product that he was physically incapable of playing. But that was not what was set up front. Basically, he ordered an apple and he got an orange, and he has a citrus allergy to bear this down excessively. So this guy's been back in the game for a while, and has been trying to put money into this for a while, and upon realizing this, asks for his money back and gets a no. This is when things get a little bit morally repugnant, I think is the word I want to use here. Because over time, the company who makes Star Citizen, forgive me for once again not remembering the name, has been changing their terms of agreement to the point where one of the things that they have changed it to, this is not a joke, they keep changing the terms of agreement to define how you can get your money back from investing into Star Citizen, is as of right now, because it's been updated many, many times, as of right now it's been updated so that you cannot, according to their terms of agreement, you cannot legally get your money returned back to them so long as development is ongoing. And that's the defining point. And that's shady as crap, as far as I'm concerned. I understand that they need to... Nice music choice, huh? I understand that they're trying to protect their investments. I understand that they would lose some investments if they were honest about it, which is stupid. I understand that they're trying to make sure that some people don't actually just invest and then return, or invest and return. That's just going to be a nightmare. But again, I believe firmly in the concept of exceptions. This is where this pisses me off, because the reading... Yes, see, this is where we're getting to, Hariant. The reading here, the ruling, excuse me, not reading. The ruling in the court was that given the current terms of service, he was not allowed to return his money when it was donated before that term of service existed. That was the ruling. So in other words, they changed their term of service now, so the money you donated then, when the term of service allowed... I mean, I keep saying term of service, that's actually the wrong phrase, forgive me. When the document allowed for you to get a return, because it used to be like that, has since been changed so it can't, and this is what applies retroactively. This is why this is a problem. Because that was a ruling in court that made this happen. Yeah, this is mega shady as far as I'm concerned. I have been actively angry, I'm just going to be honest about this, about the economics going into Star Citizen for the better part of a year and a half at this point. Pretty much ever since I started looking into it. This does not help matters. Yeah, this sets a horrific precedent. This is a terrible precedent to be set. Now, to be clear, this is not a legal precedence. Legal precedence is kind of a separate category. But this is a defense precedence, which is a separate thing, okay? Legal precedence is when it goes to the Court of Appeals, and then it gets overturned, and then that sets precedent, which can then be used as straight law. This sets defense precedent, which in other words, this is a U.S. court, I think. I should look that up. I'm pretty sure it was a U.S. court. It was Arizona, wasn't it? I'll have to look that up. Anyways, point being, defense precedent is something like that isn't hard law. But if anyone tries to go after another company for something like this in the future, they could say, well, that company over there, that court ruled in this favor, therefore there is already legal precedent for this to happen in this manner. God, I hate legalese. They wouldn't say legal precedent because it's not legal precedent. They would say there is a reason to believe that this should be how the law should be interpreted. There we go. I hate legalese. It's written for lawyers by lawyers. So anyways. Yeah, this is, wrong. Wrong. Now, again, this is why I keep pointing out the exceptions perspective. If this is just some guy who is just like, I just want out. Man, where's my freaking game? Well, that's a different matter, isn't it? I mean, you could make a case for that, but that really is a separate circumstance. This is just fear happening here. Thank you very, very much, Bella. Welcome to the Baker's Dozen Club. The other problem here is that this is, as Bragwin just, or not Bragwin, sorry, someone in chat, I think Max Time, just mentioned, this is basically making Kickstarter as a concept look worse. Like, much worse. Also, how's Patreon a scam? Oh, are full of scams. Okay, that makes more sense. Because it's true, that is absolutely true. It's always the great risk. And I know this sounds horrible, but I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be this big of a risk. I know that sounds idealistic and stupid, but it shouldn't be, am I getting scammed? It should be, am I getting a return on investment? There's a difference between those two things. If I am investing into something and it doesn't pay off, then it doesn't pay off. I gambled and I lost. XX0. But this is creating an environment where people are getting, I shouldn't say people, people I talk to and interact with, which is a fairly small group, I'll admit it, are getting more and more hesitant to even think about kickstarting something, even if it's something that looks appealing or promising or whatever, because what if it's a scam? How do you do due diligence when they aren't required to release certain information? I hate to be the person who's arguing in favor of more documentation and more bureaucracy, but Christ's sakes, there's got to be something we can do to prevent this crap from happening. This also kind of irritates me personally. I remember that too, Soccer Boot. This kind of irritates me personally because a week does not go by where I do not hear another game that's being kickstarted that looks interesting. And there's always that twinge in the back of my mind. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like there isn't such a thing as good Kickstarters. Bloodstained. Which was great. I have, in my opinion, already gotten my money back on the Bloodstained investment in Kickstartering that. I know the game itself hasn't come out yet, and I don't care because the 8-bit one that came out was amazing. And I have since beaten to, conclusion. Pillars of Eternity? I mean, it's not like there aren't success stories in Kickstarter. Anyways, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go off on a rant. I really didn't. Yeah, Subnautica was Kickstarter too, I think. I do remember Nighty Number 9. I was a Kickstarter for that one, too. I also remember Unsung Heroes or Unsung Tales or... God, I don't even remember the name of the game. I'm still technically a Kickstarter for it. What the hell is the name of that stupid thing? I think it's Unsung Heroes. Unsung Heroes. Is that it? Hang on. Yeah, the Final Fantasy Tactics one, yeah. Okay, yeah, it's Unsung Story? That doesn't sound right. Or is that it? Okay, yeah, it's Unsung Story. That's the one. That's the one. And I have to be honest, I think the other problem is too many of these developers do not know economics. I know that sounds so horrible, but I think more of these developers need someone like me, or someone who actually does that for a living, who knows how to handle a budget, who knows how to handle finances, who knows how to figure out what they need and how to apply it, and do a proper examination of their own books, and then do it and implement it. I think there are just too many developers who are like, we're going to make a game! And they have absolutely no idea how to do the infrastructure of making a game, just the crafting of it. Yeah, can they afford it? Exactly. Is this possible? Should we go with this? I've said this so many times. I actually get irritated when they do stretch goals that basically would cost more overall than the extra money they made with the stretch goals. I don't get your question, Harant. I'm sorry. Oh, mindset. That makes a lot more sense. What mindset of traditional investing should be part of supporting Kickstarters? I would honestly say about all of it. Maybe like 90%. Because that's how I approach it. And I can only say from my own perspective. 90% is I invest into this game, this product, this service, hoping that it will come out. Now, what I'm getting in my return is not money. What I'm getting in return is a good game, at least hypothetically. The 10% should be this game looks interesting. And I will also say, and several people in chat have already said this as well, several of the more successful Kickstarters have come to Kickstarter saying, here's our concept, here's a playable demo, here's a video showing what we're actually going to be able to do. You know, in other words, rather than, I want to make a game about such and such, here's on Kickstarter, a lot of developers, a lot of more successful developers have already started the development process, have already made some of the game, pushed it up onto Kickstarter and said, okay, we want to make this game. Here's our demo. You know, we threw this together over the last couple of months. Help us turn this into a full reality, right? That's the 10%. And I also agree with Soccer Bit. You know, a concept can sound great. I've said, God, I feel like I've talked about this 50,000 times in the last couple of months as I've been recording Ruminations, but it's easy to have a good idea. It is hard to implement it well. Just because you have a good concept does not make that a good game. If you like Final Fantasy VI, that does not mean an ATB, you know, RPG is automatically good. You have to do it well. You have to implement it well. A mechanic is not good. A mechanic must be implemented good. I'm sorry, we're just straying way off topic at this point, aren't we? That's probably the one I just mentioned, Chocolate Rob, Unsung Story. Unsung Story has since shifted developers entirely because the previous developers bombed and crashed and burned and died horribly. The potential. I can think of potential all day long. Yeah, we're getting a very small amount of stream lag right now. I'm not sure why. Dump Kingdoms. I've actually looked at that. It's also on Kickstarter. I only had a chance to look at it. It looks interesting. It looks like they have a decent amount of the game playable, demoable before actually getting going, which is good. I do agree with that. I think what irritates me most about this, can I just be honest for a second? I know, I've been lying all day. What I mean by being honest is being open. I should use my terms more clearly. I'm always honest, but I tend to not be open most of my life. What bothers me most about this is we have a circumstance in which creative works are being detrimented because of horrible people who are scamming or poor economic decisions. That aggravates me. You know? Anyways. I do have another topic which is more positive, I swear. It probably doesn't help that not a lot of people make big news. Oh, that sucks, Gary. It's probably not a big... it's probably a problem that most news outlets don't talk about successful Kickstarter stories. We have to come up with those. Instead, news outlets are like, oh my god, it exploded! Oh my god, this is horrible! Oh my god, this is terrible! Oh my god, this horrible, scammy, terrible, horrible, scammy, terrible, horrible. Life sucks and everything's horrible. Hang on. Where was this? Where is it? Where? I need to pull something up here really quick. Give me just a second. This is relevant, I swear. This is relevant. Give me just a moment. Okay, I'm just gonna... This is a PvP comic. Okay, I'm just gonna flip to the news for a second. A new study from the University of Columbia reveals everyone is terrible and the world is burning. Group you belong to is the wrong group. Are you an oppressor? Activists say, sure, probably. And then the TV goes off. That's news. Right there. You know, I'm sorry. I hate to repeat myself because I know I've said this story before. But when I very first got into television productions, this was my sophomore, I think, year in high school. This was a while ago. It's back in the 90s. The very first question we got as we sat down for TV productions, the guy, cool guy, he said, "What's the purpose of television? What's the purpose of news media?" And a whole bunch of people were giving all sorts of answers. I just raised my hand, and he's like, yep, you, in the back, whose name is Lore, because that's what I call my students. He says, Lore? And I said, it's a business. And he was like, bingo! I was the only person who got that question right in that class. It's a business. News is a business. And that's the problem. Because they have no motivation to tell news. There is no motivation to give news. Only things that sell. The two might coincide. Whoop, whoop. What is news? Well, how about the fact that we're getting the final seasons of Clone Wars? How's that for news? Because that's news! That's actually news that's actually happening. News! Now, how many of you, before I even get into this topic, how many of you have followed Farscape, especially when it came out? This is important. How many of you watched Farscape as it was coming out? I'll, of course, raise my hand on this one. No one? Am I just that... Oh, right, I turned off the delay problem. So now we've got the 30-second delay again. I suppose I should clarify. I'm getting a lot of no's here. A couple of no's. Really, Nero says? Farscape was an awesome show. It had its flaws. Good God, it had its flaws. But Farscape was an awesome show. It was big on continuity. It was big on character. It was a fantasy science fiction show, which was awesome. I love how Django's not here for us talking about Farscape. And then they kind of just pulled the plug more or less out of nowhere. Now, television getting canceled is kind of normal, unfortunately, for reasons that I've discussed many, many times over in my Star Trek stuff. But this was actually kind of an unusual circumstance, because Farscape's plug was pulled very quickly. Like, they did not have the time to prep for this. They did not have time to change production or script or where they were working. It was just BAM! Hang on, one more. Damn, I can't... Ah! Right? And then the last episode just kind of ended. It stopped. It didn't end. It just stopped. And it was like, what? And there was no word or news or even a hint of rumor of it actually continuing. It was just like, okay. Now, yeah, exactly, Retu. They did what? Now, thankfully, thankfully, we did actually get the Peacekeeper Wars, which continued and concluded the arc. A little rushed. A lot of story arcs had to be crammed into a small period of time. But at the very least, it was like, oh, I just realized we can change playlists now. Hang on. I have a good playlist for this. Give me a second. We'll go here. So, yeah, no kidding, soccer bit. So again, like I said, this is kind of normal, but thankfully Farscape got to, conclude with the Peacekeeper Wars. Now, Clone Wars kind of had a similar situation. They didn't end in... They had a little bit of warning, but if you've seen the last episode of Clone Wars, you know that it's not really an ending. It's just kind of a... And this is where we're at in the story now. And that's it. There's still a whole bunch of stuff left up in the air because they had planned on quite a few additional episodes to go after. They had already mapped it out. They already had several of the scripts written. They already knew the story arcs, blah, blah, blah. Then that, and we got Rebels instead. Now, apparently, what I don't understand is why they're doing this now. This is probably the one thing that doesn't make sense to me, because... How do I phrase this? If you're going to shut down a show, nowadays, that's a little bit different decision than when it used to be. Television as a very concept has changed fundamentally in the last 15, 20 years. Some would argue for the better. I would agree. I do actually think television has changed for the better nowadays, since we no longer have to rely on Nielsen ratings, for example. But they canceled Clone Wars, and then there was a resurgence of Star Wars stuff. In fact, we've got, 2 new Star Wars shows coming out? We've got the anime one, and then we've got the live-action one. I feel like there's actually a third one. Help me out here, guys. I actually can't remember. Anyways, point being, so then they're just deciding to bring Clone Wars back and actually conclude it. It just feels like a very strange decision. Don't mistake me, I'm excited as anybody else is. I think Clone Wars is another one of those net positive scenarios. But, the only argument, and someone in chat already said this, the only argument I can see is that they're trying to encourage the Disney live streaming service, but that's not even a thing for another year and a half, I think, at this point. They've already said when it's going live. I can't remember right now. Please forgive me. And thus having, several Star Wars shows going simultaneously on that might be able to draw in new viewers and get them hooked on the Disney, blah, 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 blah. By the way, I still think the Disney streaming service is stupid. Let me just go on record as saying that. Yeah, Clone Wars started very mad. I remember the Clone Wars movie. I hated the Clone Wars movie. I have, yes, Hazardous. Getting back to the point, though. What I find really interesting here is that I have an answer to my own question, but this is purely hypothetical. So we know based on creator comments, we know based on creator comments that they had stuff planned, including some stuff that was going to be related to the Vong. Oh yeah, by the way, streaming service, that's another thing where we could bring up that standardization question that we were bringing up earlier. Is it better for 50 companies to have their own streaming services? Or 3? But yeah, so there's been a growing story arc, for those of you not paying attention to the AU, about Thrawn, and about the unknown regions, and about some big threat out there. Now, to my knowledge, and I did look into this week, we still don't have specifics on what exactly that is planned to be. The obvious guess is that it's the Vong, because EU, but it doesn't have to be the Vong, it could be anything. It could be the friggin' Chiss. What I'm trying to get at here is it feels like the reason they could be doing this is they want to push this particular arc of where they're pushing the AU, which would especially be true if the new movie trilogy or if Episode 9 have something to do with this Unknown Regions plot arc. Having build-up back at the end of the Clone Wars about whatever's going on in the Unknown Regions, plus the 2 books going on about the Unknown Regions, plus one of the shows, I can't remember which show, is going to be about the Unknown Regions. Like, you get where I'm going with this. You get the idea of maybe this is something they're trying to push in order to make those movies more profitable. That would make more sense to me if you zoom your camera out a little bit. I hope it's not the Vong. If you zoom your camera out a little bit more, it would make more sense if they're trying to shift their marketing perspective in order to ensure more return on investment when it comes to their movies, because Solo did not sell well, despite the fact that it was a good film. Yes, I'm willing to say that. Right? Thus, okay, we need to make sure that as many people are aware of the story arcs going into these new movies as possible. Let's go ahead and promote them by having several cross-media things doing that are trying to get people aware of the Unknown Region story arc. Then we get to the thing, blah, 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 blah. You get it? Pure theory. This is just speculating here. Well, yeah, I agree, Soccer Bit. Hello, Sonic Doctor. Solo suffered from a lot of things, in my opinion. Let's not get into that. It's really another topic right there. Everything, Mugen? I don't know. Does anybody in chat have a negative opinion on everything that Disney has done with Star Wars? Because I'm not in that opinion. I liked Rogue One. I liked Solo. I liked Episode 7-ish. I liked parts of Episode 8. I liked a lot of the end of Rebels. In fact, if anything, this is very minor spoilers for Rebels in 3, 2, 1. I also think that Rebels kind of ended in a, to be continued way, in my opinion. We'll see what they do with that. And I don't mean leading into New Hope, or rather leading into Rogue One. So. Speaking of which, this is a small announcement, but I'm going to be adding The Last Jedi to my forbidden list. Yes, really. I feel like I can't actually discuss that movie without it turning into a toxic mess fest, and I have no interest in having that on my show. That's what Halloween's for. So, no ruminations on Last Jedi. At least not until people calm down a bit. Yeah, I know, Anthony. You get my point, though. I can't believe I have to add Last Jedi to the controversial topics thing. That's just that bothers me. One of the things that I will say is that someday I will actually do a full analysis of it's on my website, Skink Warrior. Someday I will do a full analysis of Clone Wars. It's something that's going to happen. I kind of want to go through it and try to analyze why Clone Wars is so bad on occasion. You know what I mean? Like, when I don't know about you guys, but when I mentally think about Clone Wars, no, Savacom. When I mentally think about Clone Wars, and when I mentally think about, Vigilant, when I mentally think about Rebels, I think of them in terms of net positive. I think there's some really, really great stuff there that I really, really like. And I have to force myself to remember the Drek, because there is Drek. There is Pla in both of those shows. And there's also a lot of meandering, especially in Rebels. There's just, and then this, and then this. You know? It's so strange. Like, I have faith in the company, which, bringing this back to Clone Wars, is why I'm excited. I'm excited to see more Clone Wars. I'm with it. Yes, awesome. But at the same time, is it all going to be the good stuff? I don't even know. How do we even know? Is this all going to be a positive thing? How much of this is going to be their original story arcs? How much of this is new? Oh, here's another thing I want to bring up, speaking of Clone Wars and what they're going to do. One thing that's very important to me is now that they've done Rebels and Solo and Rogue One, they now have the option to fill in the pieces more cleanly and neatly to make a cohesive timeline. I hope they do that. I really do. I really hope that they actually lead up to Rebels and Solo not to spoil, and kind of follow that arc, that kind of empty gap there in between the two better. That's something that I really want them to do. We'll see. I'm going to be watching it, assuming it's on Netflix, of course, because I don't feel like spending another $15 a month. That's another argument against the opposite of standardization. It's diversification. That's another argument against diversification. And I know that sounds like a weird comment, but how many of you guys don't want to pay for Netflix and Hulu and like DirecTV and Disney's service and blah and blah and blah, right? You get my point? I only pay for Netflix for my niece, to be completely honest with you. That's for her. It's another part of the standardization argument. I don't even remember, Gary. I'd have to look that up. I hope so, Pico. That'd be cool. There is actually a schedule, Ashok, but right now it's kind of empty because I'm watching my niece like full-time right now, so I don't have anything scheduled because I'm busy. However, every Monday we have Star Trek Next Generation stuff on YouTube. Every Tuesday we have Star Trek Deep Space Nine stuff on YouTube. And we also have Rumination stuff on Friday, which you can see a list for that on my website, which is loreweek.com. Welcome to my stream. Kind of pulling back on the streams right now, but I'm going to be like full-time streaming as soon as I'm done with the YouTube stuff. Oh yeah, someone asked me what I still have to do as far as YouTube stuff. All of DS9. I haven't even started that. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 Friday Ruminations. That's what I still have left. So I'm going to get one of those done today, bare minimum, because I'm basically ready to go on one of those Friday Ruminations. So, woo! That'll be the Dragon Age one if you're curious. Oh yeah, can I share... So let's get rid of the current topic, because we're off that now. Can I share a quick story, really quick? I'm just proud of my niece. So we're playing Dragon Age Origins, backseat playing. I'm on the keyboard, she's telling me what to do. And we're going through Redcliffe. And she's like, okay, we've got to help him. We tell him we'll find his daughter. Tell him we'll find his daughter. Okay. And she's really getting into it. She's really big on story stuff. And so we go through there, and it's like, all right, here's this guy. He's a spy. So now we can oust him as a spy, or we can say no. And she's like, oust him as a spy. Make him help. Make him help the people. Okay. Yes, they are, Anthony. Yes, I have, Pico. I think it's awful, with a few moments of decency. And, there's no Darkspawn in Redcliffe, actually, if you're paying attention. There's Undead, the stalking damned. And so we're going through Redcliffe, and we get to the point where the Undead attack, and I'm like, alright, I need your help killing these. Now, I'm cheating. So I have a mod that basically allows me to do the kill all console command bound to 4. So I'm like, all right, you need to press 4. She's like, okay, bam! She's like, okay, 4! Actually, she does like this. It's very cute. So she's defeating all the, yay, we beat them all! Okay, we go up. We go to the thing. We got oh, the people are showing, okay, so we can ask them to come with us, or we can go in by ourselves. And she said, we should go in by ourselves because we're stronger than them, and that way they won't get hurt. Okay, good move, kiddo. So we go in and we meet the Desired Demon in Chad or Charon or what the hell is it? It starts with a C. Connor, that's it, Connor. Then we get to the point where they discuss the blood magic ritual in order to save Connor. And she's like, okay. She's listening, and she's like, what? The mama's gonna die? And I'm like, well, okay. Hear me out, kiddo. Here's the situation. All right, so Connor's mother loves her son very much, right? Of course, yes. So she is willing to die in order to save his life. She's like, it's okay, because we have another option. Now, if she dies, she will save his life, and he will be better, and he'll be saved. However, if we go and do a whole lot of work, we have a chance of maybe helping both of them. She thinks about it for a moment. She says, do lots of work. We need to help both of them. So we ended up going to the Mage Tower instead of doing the ritual. I love my niece. Anyways, I just had to share that little story. She's also watching Top Gear now, without my input. She is growing up too quickly, that's what she's doing. I technically could have other topics, but I think we'll skip those for now. Let me just double check my news notes here really quickly. Whoops. Yeah, we'll save that for later. You might drift across the room. Top Gear, not Grand Tour. So I'm going to go ahead and chop this off. And I'm going to go work on YouTube. Because today's my last day to work on YouTube for about 8 days now. Until August, I'm going to be watching my niece. So I will be streaming Monday evening, as usual. And then I will be streaming next Loreweek. But that's it. So, FYI. Either way, hope you've enjoyed. See you guys next time.